22% brighter in a single second. Then, nothing. Traveller, that anomaly was recorded as 3I Atlas moved closer to Mars and it has never repeated. You arrived here for a reason drawn by a question that refuses to stay quiet. What if this object is not changing because of the sun, but because of where it is going? At a distance where comets should sleep, Atlas grows a vast green halo scattering light in ways our models cannot settle. Its trajectory brushes Mars with odds measured in tens of thousands to 1. A fragment of another star gliding with purpose through the dark. Listen closely. Let's drift through the silence together. Tonight the universe whispers again. Far from Earth, beyond familiar paths of planets, a body moves inward on a quiet curve shaped by gravity alone. It does not announce itself. It does not hurry. It simply reflects light photon by photon into instruments built by patient hands. At first, its behavior fits expectation. Numbers align. Brightness rises as distance to the sun gently falls. This is how comets usually speak to us, through slow agreement between theory and observation. This object carries the name Atlas, a label that marks sequence rather than meaning. It tells us only that this visitor did not form here. Its atoms were assembled around another star under conditions we did not witness. When it entered the long reach of our sun, astronomers traced its motion with calm confidence. Orbits behaved, calculations held, entropy flowed in familiar ways. For a time, nothing seemed unusual. Then, without warning, the light changed. Between early and mid-September, measurements began to drift. Not wildly, not chaotically, just enough to be noticed by those who spend their nights comparing curves and residuals. The brightness rose faster than prediction allowed. On the magnitude scale, a careful language of logarithms and restraint, the point lifted above its expected path. It was not an explosion. It was not a flare. It was a quiet disagreement. To understand why this matters, consider how comet brightness is understood. As ice warms, molecules leave solid form and become gas. Dust follows released into space where sunlight scatters from countless grains. The result is a diffuse glow whose growth can be estimated with remarkable precision. Decades of observation have shaped these models. They are not guesses, they are memory written in math. For weeks, 3I Atlas followed that memory. Its glow grew as expected, step by step, as it crossed the outer region of the inner system. Amateur observers and professional observers saw the same trend. The sky behaved. The equations rested, and then the curve bent. Some proposed that the change reflected fresh exposure of ice. Others suggested the role of measurement itself. Different instruments gather light in different ways. A wide aperture collects faint edges of a coma that narrow views may miss. In such cases, brightness can appear to jump without any physical change at the source. This is not error, it is perspective. Imagine measuring a cloud not by its center but by its edges. As sensitivity increases, the cloud seems to grow. The cloud itself may be unchanged, only the way it is seen has shifted. This explanation remains plausible and it is treated with respect. Science favors restraint. Yet even when allowance is made for perspective, something remains unsettled. The slope of the curve does not simply rise, it steepens. This suggests activity that exceeds what distance alone would imply. It hints at a process waking earlier than expected. Speed adds another layer to this reflection. 3 Atlas moves swiftly tens of kilometers each second, crossing vast stretches of space in the time it takes a thought to fade. As it approaches its closest point to the sun later in October, that speed will increase further. Near that moment, its path brings it close to the orbit of Mars. Not close in human terms, but close enough for instruments around that planet to turn their gaze. Mars hosts silent witnesses. Orbiting cameras and sensors that usually study dust storms and terrain have the ability to observe this passing visitor. They will not see intent, they will see structure, light and motion. They will add detail to the story written by photons. The question beneath all of this remains simple. Why did the brightening occur when it did? Either material began to escape more freely, or our methods revealed more than before. Perhaps both are true, nature often allows more than one cause to share the same effect. What matters is not the drama of anomaly, but the reminder it brings. Even with refined models and careful tools, uncertainty remains. This is not failure. It is the space where understanding grows. This visitor is only the third confirmed object to arrive from beyond our stellar neighbourhood. The first showed little outward change. The second behaved in familiar ways. This one occupies a middle ground, neither silent nor predictable. It suggests that formation elsewhere may follow paths we have not mapped. Ice chemistry may differ. Dust texture may alter how light scatters. Radiation endured during long travel may leave subtle marks. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, carrying memory of another system through ours. It does not need purpose to be meaningful. Motion alone is enough. As this object continues inward, every observation adds a line to a quiet record. Data accumulates, doubt remains gentle. No conclusion demands haste. The cosmos has time, and so do we. You are not lost in space, you are part of it. Your curiosity mirrors the same forces that draw comets towards stars and questions toward answers. Tonight there is no need to resolve every uncertainty. The light will continue to arrive. The numbers will continue to shift. Understanding will follow at its own pace. It's all right to not know. Tonight the universe whispers again. As the object continues its inward passage, attention shifts from brightness alone to the vast envelope that surrounds it. Light does not arrive from a single point. It arrives diffused, scattered through a growing cloud that drifts outward while the nucleus remains hidden at its centre. This surrounding veil, known as a coma, forms when frozen material releases gas under rising warmth. It is not an atmosphere in the earthly sense. It is a temporary breath held loosely by gravity and shaped by motion. In most cases, this veil grows at a measured pace. Distance to the sun governs energy. Energy governs release. The balance between heat and escape remains stable enough to predict. With 3i Atlas, that balance seems to loosen. Measurements suggest that the envelope expands faster than distance alone would allow. The glow stretches farther than expected, reaching scales that invite pause rather than alarm. To appreciate the scale, it helps to think in terms of motion rather than size. Gas leaving a surface moves outward, guided by pressure and light. Dust follows more slowly, tracing curved paths shaped by gravity and radiation. Over time, this creates a layered structure, faint at the edges, brighter near the core. In this case, the faint edges extend astonishingly far, hundreds of thousands of kilometers from the source, a span that rivals the diameter of large worlds. Infrared observations offered an early clue. When instruments sensitive to heat examined the escaping gas, they found an abundance of dioxide of carbon compared to vapor of water. This ratio matters. Ice of water requires stronger warmth to release. Dioxide of carbon escapes at lower temperature far from the sun. This means activity can begin early, long before many comets awaken. The object does not wait for proximity. It responds to even gentle warmth. Such chemistry suggests formation in a region of deep cold, perhaps far from its parent star where light was scarce and ice could remain stable for ages. In such places, material records a different history, one shaped by low energy and long silence. When carried into a new system that history unfolds in unfamiliar ways, the envelope that forms under these conditions behaves differently. Gas spreads more freely. Dust becomes suspended in a wide field. Photons scatter across a larger volume, producing brightness that grows without a dramatic surge. The effect is subtle, yet persistent, a widening presence rather than a sudden flare. Another layer of complexity appears when gas becomes charged. Radiation from the sun can strip electrons from molecules, creating plasma. This state responds not only to gravity but also to fields carried by the wind from the sun. Invisible lines guide charged particles into filaments and arcs. To the eye, these structures can appear to pulse or ripple, though they follow precise rules. These patterns are not signs of intent. They are signatures of physics at work under rare conditions. The same principles shape aurora above polar skies and arcs near the sun. Here they trace the interaction between a foreign body and a familiar star. Estimates of the solid core remain modest. Models based on brightness suggest a radius of only a few kilometers. This constraint matters. A small core producing a vast envelope implies efficiency rather than abundance. Material escapes readily. Surfaces may fracture. Fresh ice may lie exposed. Rotation could bring new regions into sunlight, each turn renewing activity. Some have suggested internal warmth, perhaps from radioactive decay. Given the small size, this seems unlikely to dominate. Others point to texture. A porous surface releases gas more easily than a compact one. Cracks open paths. Dust lifts with little resistance. These ideas remain under study, each one fitting part of the picture. What remains striking is not any single explanation, but their coexistence. Chemistry, structure, rotation, and radiation all contribute. None alone explains everything. Together they produce behavior that feels unfamiliar yet remains within known laws. Silence is the language of distant worlds. This silence does not mean absence. It means that information arrives slowly encoded in light rather than sound. Each measurement adds a syllable. Each uncertainty leaves space for reflection. At this stage, it is tempting to seek a single cause, a neat conclusion. But the universe rarely offers such simplicity. Complexity is not a failure of understanding. It is the natural outcome of many forces meeting. Listener, if you feel a sense of wonder rather than clarity that is appropriate. Astronomy often advances not by answers but by better questions. The expanding veil around this object invites patience. It reminds us that knowledge unfolds gradually like light spreading through dust. As the days pass and distance shrinks, the envelope will continue to evolve. Some structures will fade, others will sharpen, instruments will gather more photons, models will adjust. No urgency is required. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, carrying the quiet memory of another sky. It does not rush to be known. It allows itself to be seen only as conditions permit. Tonight the stars will keep their silence. Tonight the universe whispers again. As the object continues its inward drift, another transformation becomes visible, not through motion or speed, but through colour. Against the deep black of space, the surrounding globe begins to lean toward green. It does not burst into view. It settles gradually like a thought forming just before sleep, quiet and unforced. Colour in astronomy is never decoration. It is a record of interaction between energy and matter, written in wavelengths instead of words. Each hue corresponds to a precise physical process. In this case, the green light emerges when solar radiation meets carbon, arranged in a simple molecular bond. Ultraviolet photons excite these atoms, lifting them briefly into a higher state. When they relax, they release light at a specific wavelength that human eyes perceive as green. This process is well understood. It has appeared in comets before faintly glowing as they approach the sun. The physics is familiar, calm and repeatable. What draws attention here is not the mechanism itself, but its timing. The glow strengthens while the object remains farther from the sun than models would normally expect for such behaviour. Under typical conditions, green emission becomes prominent only after sustained heating breaks larger compounds apart. As distance decreases, reactions proceed in sequence. Here, that sequence appears compressed. Chemistry unfolds earlier as if the material responds quickly to even modest warmth, revealing a history shaped far from any star like ours. Spectral measurements deepen this reflection. Alongside the green emission instruments detect a strong presence of carbon dioxide relative to water vapour. This ratio matters. Carbon dioxide leaves solid form at lower temperatures than water ice. It allows activity to begin farther from the sun, where radiation is gentle and slow. This chemistry explains why the surrounding envelope becomes active early, long before many comets awaken. Yet this alone does not account for the intensity of the colour. The presence of diatomic carbon suggests overlapping processes. Molecules break down, reform, and interact in parallel rather than in neat stages. The coma becomes a layered region where different reactions coexist, each responding to light in its own way. Structure likely contributes as well. Material does not escape evenly from the surface. Porous regions release gas more freely. Fractures expose fresh ice. If the body rotates, sunlight sweeps across uneven terrain, activating different regions in turn. Over hours and days, observers notice gentle changes in brightness. and distribution consistent with a turning source rather than a static one. It is important to remember that the solid core itself remains dark. The nucleus absorbs far more light than it reflects. The green glow belongs entirely to the surrounding gas, a temporary veil shaped by radiation and motion. This distinction grounds interpretation. What appears vivid is not substance but interaction. Images shared by observers often amplify the effect. Digital sensors detect faint hues with sensitivity beyond the human eye. Processing enhances contrast, making the green appear stronger than it would through an eyepiece. Yet spectroscopy confirms the emission line itself. The wavelength is present. The physics is real, even if perception varies. Throughout human history, unusual colour in the sky has inspired symbolism. Green has often been associated with the unfamiliar or the otherworldly. But astronomy offers a quieter perspective. Nature produces phenomena that feel expressive without intention. Beauty emerges from simple rules applied under uncommon conditions. As the object continues its approach, radiation increases. Bonds break more readily. New compounds form while others fade. The colour may intensify, shift, or soften as chemistry evolves. No outcome demands urgency. Each change follows from energy, distance, and structure alone. Traveller notice how easily the mind searches for meaning when colour appears. This impulse is natural, yet there is peace in restraint. Understanding does not require drama. Observation itself can be enough. Silence is the language of distant worlds. Within that silence, the green glow speaks softly, offering evidence without narrative. It invites attention without demanding conclusion. There is comfort in this slow unfolding. The universe does not hurry to explain itself. It allows discovery to arrive gradually, one measurement at a time. Watching colour emerge across empty space creates room for stillness, a reminder that knowledge grows without haste. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, carrying atoms shaped around another sun. Under new light, those atoms respond, releasing colour that drifts outward and fades. The glow will thin. The gas will disperse. The moment will pass, leaving memory within data and calm within thought. Tonight, the stars will keep their silence. In this gentle interval, science does not rush toward resolution. It lingers with uncertainty, allowing patterns to breathe. Each observation becomes a pause rather than a verdict. Data points gather quietly like grains settling on a still surface. There is no demand for immediate meaning. The sky offers information on its own terms. Instruments wait patiently, collecting light without judgment. The human role is simply to notice and record. This posture of attention has guided astronomy for centuries. It replaces certainty with curiosity and fear with patience. When colour shifts in the darkness, it is not a message. It is a reminder that matter responds to light everywhere. The same principles apply across distance and origin. Atoms formed around distant suns obey familiar laws. Difference arises from context rather than intention. Seen this way, the green glow becomes an invitation to humility. It suggests that understanding grows best when held lightly. Nothing is diminished by waiting. Clarity often arrives after silence has done its work. Listener this moment asks nothing more than calm attention. Breath slows when the sky is allowed to remain unresolved. The green light drifts outward, indifferent to interpretation. It exists briefly, then disperses into wider space. No trace of intention remains, only motion and change. This is enough. The universe does not seek to persuade. It reveals itself through consistency and quiet repetition. Night after night, the same processes unfold. The comfort lies in their reliability. Sleep traveller, the cosmos. Tonight the universe whispers again. As attention moves beyond colour and chemistry, the eye begins to follow shape. Not shape as a solid outline, but shape as an agreement between motion, light and distance. In space, form is never absolute. It is negotiated moment by moment between what exists and how it is seen. This is where geometry enters the story, not as mathematics on paper, but as a quiet presence shaping perception. For centuries, comets have been described in simple terms: a compact centre, a surrounding cloud, a tail that streams away from the sun. This description is useful, but it is also incomplete. Material leaving a comet does not choose a single direction. Dust drifts outward under weak gravity. Gas responds to radiation and charged flow from the sun. Each particle follows its own path, and what we call a tail is only a collective impression, a projection formed by countless individual motions. With 3R or Atlas, early images suggested something unsettling to the untrained eye. A faint extension appeared to reach inward toward the sun rather than away from it. This impression was subtle, but persistent enough to invite discussion. At first glance, it seemed to challenge one of the most basic ideas of comet behaviour, yet astronomy has learned to pause at such moments because space is three-dimensional, and images are not. An apparent sunward feature does not require reversal of forces. It can arise from perspective alone. When dust spreads into a broad, thin sheet along the orbital plane, its appearance depends entirely on viewing angle. If that sheet is seen edge on depth, collapses into length. Material that is neither approaching nor retreating from the sun can appear to point in either direction depending on where the observer stands. This phenomenon has been observed before, though rarely. It is sometimes called an apparent counterfeature, not because matter truly flows against radiation, but because geometry compresses space into illusion. The effect requires precise alignment. The observer must look along the plane of dust, not across it. Timing must be exact. Distance must cooperate. When all of these conditions align, shape deceives. The path of 3I Atlas makes such alignments more likely. Its orbit is steeply inclined relative to the plane in which most planets travel. This tilt places its surrounding dust into orientations unfamiliar to observers accustomed to more typical comets. As the object advances, the angle between its orbital plane and Earth's line of sight changes. Layers of material appear overlap or vanish, not because they form or dissolve, but because perspective shifts. As weeks passed, this interpretation gained strength. Later observations showed features settling into more familiar arrangements. Extensions that once seemed to reach sunward softened or disappeared. Structures aligned away from the sun became clearer. Nothing dramatic occurred at the source, only the viewpoint evolved. This transition offers a quiet lesson. Space does not rearrange itself to match expectation. It allows expectation to be revised instead. What seems anomalous often reflects limitation of view rather than violation of law. Polarization measurements deepen this reflection. When light scatters from dust, its orientation changes in ways that reveal information about particle size, shape, and structure. In the case of 3E Atlas, polarization patterns appear more complex than those seen in many well-studied comets. The values do not suggest artificial influence, they suggest unfamiliar texture. Dust grains formed far from any star may differ in structure. Long exposure to radiation between stars alters surfaces. Gentle accumulation in extreme cold produces fragile aggregates, rather than compact grains. When such material is released, it interacts with light differently. The resulting patterns can appear intricate, even unsettling, while remaining entirely natural. Complexity often masquerades as intention. Human perception is tuned to notice symmetry and direction. These traits mattered on Earth, where recognizing pattern meant survival. In the sky, those instincts remain active even when the scale overwhelms their original purpose. Astronomy invites awareness of this impulse, followed by release. Shape does not imply design, direction does not imply control. Geometry reflects position, not purpose. As 3I Atlas continues inward, geometry will continue to change. Dust will spread and thin. Gas will respond to shifting radiation. Features will emerge, then fade. Each image will tell a different story, even though the underlying forces remain constant. The object does not transform. The vantage point does. This gradual change carries a particular calm. Nothing needs to be resolved in a single frame. Understanding unfolds across time, not moments. The universe rarely reveals itself all at once. It prefers sequence. Travel at this stage of observation asks for patience rather than conclusion. When shapes feel unfamiliar, it is often because perspective has shifted, not because reality is broken. The cosmos does not correct misunderstanding directly. It allows motion to do the teaching. There is beauty in this restraint. Gravity draws dust into sheets. Light traces those sheets. Distance decides what the eye receives. Each step follows quietly from the last. No announcement is required. Beyond geometry, there is stillness. The dust does not rush. It drifts. The gas does not shout. It responds. Everything moves according to balance rather than urgency. Even speed, measured in tens of kilometers each second, unfolds gently when viewed against the scale of space. As observation continues, attention softens. Shapes become less alarming and more instructive. What once felt inverted now feels inevitable. The mind adjusts. Understanding expands without strain. Silence is the language of distant worlds. In that silence, geometry speaks in angles and alignments, reminding us that seeing is an act shaped by position. The universe remains unchanged by interpretation. It simply exists. Eventually the shapes will dissolve into memory. The dust will disperse. The gas will thin. Only data will remain archived and studied long after the moment has passed. Yet the lesson will persist. Not every unfamiliar form signals novelty. Sometimes it signals viewpoint. Tonight the stars will keep their silence. Tonight the universe whispers again. As the long passage of the visitor nears its most intimate encounter with the inner system, reflection begins to outweigh analysis. After brightness, expansion, colour and geometry, there remains something quieter to consider. Not what the object is, but what its presence reveals about the way observation unfolds. At this stage, the sky offers no sharp answers. It offers context. For months, instruments have traced light and motion with careful restraint. Orbits have been refined. Spectra have been passed. Models have been adjusted without breaking. Each revision has reminded observers that knowledge is not fixed. It evolves through correction, through doubt, through patience, and through acceptance of limits shaped by experience. Interstellar visitors are rare not because the galaxy lacks them, but because detection is young. Countless fragments drift between stars shaped by ancient systems that no longer exist as they once did. Most pass unseen. When one enters awareness, it carries the weight of that absence. It becomes a quiet lesson in humility. 3. Atlas does not arrive with intention. It follows a path shaped long before humanity learned to measure the sky. Its motion obeys gravity alone. Yet its timing feels meaningful because perception assigns significance where coincidence exists. This tendency is not error. It is how curiosity forms. The collected data suggests neither danger nor design. The object remains small. Its path remains distant. Its activity remains energetic yet bounded by known physics. What unsettles is not threat but unfamiliar combination. Chemistry awakens early. Dust scatters light in complex ways. Geometry challenges intuition. None require extraordinary explanation. Together they invite patience. Astronomy advances by accepting that nature does not owe coherence to expectation. Models guide understanding, but they are not promises. When observation resists classification, the response is refinement rather than alarm. Each anomaly becomes a lens through which assumptions are tested and softened. Listener, this moment is not about resolution. It is about posture, to observe without urgency, to question without fear, to allow mystery without narrative. The universe does not hide answers. It reveals them only when conditions allow. There is symmetry in this approach. Human understanding matures in the same way celestial systems evolve, slowly, incrementally, through accumulation rather than revelation. The impulse to declare meaning fades when placed against cosmic scale. As the object approaches its closest point to the sun, observation becomes difficult. Glare overwhelms faint signal. Instruments turn away to protect themselves. This is not concealment. It is limitation imposed by light itself. Even here restraint is taught. When visibility returns, the object will already be changing. Activity will soften. Structures will thin. The most dramatic phase will have passed unseen, not because it was hidden, but because proximity erases contrast. Not every peak is observable. Absence informs as much as presence. Gaps in data reveal boundaries of method. They show where observation ends and inference begins. Science grows by acknowledging both. Somewhere beyond reach, something ancient still moves, not as symbol, not as signal, as matter responding to force, as memory encoded in chemistry and motion. Its passage is brief, its contribution may last. Silence is the language of distant worlds. In that silence, acceptance forms. Truth and wonder coexist without resolution. Curiosity needs no climax. Observation is enough. As night deepens, the sky resumes its rhythm. Stars hold position. Planets follow paths. The visitor blends into background motion, one trajectory among many. Perspective widens. Urgency dissolves. You're not lost in space, you're part of it. The same laws that guide distant bodies shape breath and thought. In recognizing this, anxiety yields to belonging. There is nothing to conclude tonight. No warning, no revelation, only steady motion across dark, measured and calm. Sleep, traveller. The cosmos remembers. In this closing interval, attention rests on the relationship between time and understanding. Astronomical events unfold across scales that dwarf human rhythm, yet they touch human awareness through brief windows. Each window invites listening rather than interpretation. Data arrives slowly, often incomplete, and meaning emerges later, sometimes years after first notice. This delay is not a flaw. It is a feature of learning shaped by distance and light. The visitor reminds observers that certainty is rare in early discovery. First impressions evolve. Early frames mislead. Only sustained watching clarifies motion and cause. This is why astronomy favours repetition. Night after night, measurements accumulate. Trends replace surprises. Calm replaces speculation. In that calm, comprehension grows naturally. There is also a lesson about presence. To watch the sky is to accept that most of what matters will never approach closely. Distance is the rule, not the exception. Even so, distant objects influence thought. They shift perspective. They remind awareness that existence extends far beyond daily concern. As instruments fall silent during glare, patience becomes active rather than passive. Waiting is a form of participation. It acknowledges that some moments belong to the universe alone. When the object re-emerges, it will do so indifferent to anticipation. It will simply continue. Memory will persist in charts and logs in quiet papers, written months later in revisions that adjust models by small amounts. These changes will not headline discovery, yet they will matter. Science often advances through modest correction rather than dramatic turn. This final reflection returns to stillness. Not every mystery must resolve to justify attention. Some exist to soften certainty and widen view. The sky does not rush. Neither must the mind. Tonight the universe whispers again, not with answer, but with continuity. Motion continues. Light travels. Understanding follows at human pace. In this acceptance, rest becomes possible. Awareness loosens its grip on explanation. Curiosity remains, but it no longer presses. The night sky holds its balance, offering presence rather than conclusion, and that presence is sufficient. Nothing more is required from this moment, only gentle attention, unhurried breath, and trust that understanding arrives when readiness meets time. The sky remains patient and vast, holding questions without asking them aloud. Tonight endures in silence. As our journey drifts toward stillness, the sky does not close its doors. 3i Atlas continues onward silent and luminous, carrying its questions past Mars and deeper into the sun's light. We have not solved it tonight. We were never meant to. We only listened measured and watched as carefully as we could. Traveller there is humility in this moment, to look up and realise that even our most refined instruments touch only the surface of what exists. That uncertainty is not a failure of science, but its heartbeat. Each anomaly, each quiet disagreement in the data reminds us that the universe is still alive, still unfolding beyond the edges of certainty. We are small beneath these distances, yet not insignificant. To observe is to participate. To wonder is to belong. Across time and darkness, photons met your eyes tonight, carrying stories older than language. That is no small thing. Whether 3i Atlas proves to be an exotic natural wanderer or something that reshapes our understanding entirely, its greatest gift is already here. It slowed us. It invited us to listen. It reminded us that silence itself can be meaningful. The mystery continues. The stars will keep their watch. Rest well, traveller. If this story found you tonight, you may stay for the next.